Thank you, Benjamin, for joining us. You'll be watching a lot of animated film this week. I'm curious, what sort of qualities will you be looking for in the award-winning film? The stories they tell, the aesthetics, or other factors?
For me, I'm always focusing more, I always try to keep this sort of innocence when I watch a movie. Is it taking me away? Is it making me feel strong things? So I'm not really putting barrier on the artistic quality of a movie. You know, you can make a very strong emotional movie with very few drawings, and you can do the opposite, making something absolutely splendid with no story, and you will feel emotion. So that's more what I'm going to feel when I'm watching the movie. That's going to take over, my judgment, I think.
It's about making that human connection.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we look at different film festivals or Academy Awards, they have a section always designated for animation.
Yeah.
What do you think is special about animated movie that is different from, say, live actions or documentaries or other forms of films?
Well, it's hard to say. I think there's something about the production of an animated movie that's quite different from live action, because live action happens very fast, you're in front of actors, you shoot them. Of course, you have to do a lot of special effects and stuff like that. In animation, everything is very slow. So that's the great thing about animation, is that you can decide everything, every line can be decided, it's chosen and everything. There's not so much space for spontaneity, or at least it's very hard to spark spontaneity in animation. But then again, it's basically a medium. And you can tell any stories with a medium, it's why they're here. So I don't think there's much difference in the end, but it's just in the way you make them. It's a very different mindset.
You've got a particular affinity for using animals to tell your stories?
Yeah.
Why animals and
I think it comes from my childhood when, in France we have a very big tradition of making tales with animals, like fables. There's the famous author called La Fontaine, and in Europe was a big maker of little tales with animals. And so I've learned all those tales when I was a kid, and I used to draw them. And then when I grew up, I realized that I love drawing animals, even going to zoos and just drawing the animals that were in front of me. The great thing about animals is that you can talk to any kind of audience. If I do a fox, they won't think, oh, it's a Chinese fox, or it's an American fox, or a French fox. It's just a fox. It's really removing all the cultural barrier, and you just see characters, humans, in a way. It's animals, but it can be you, it can be anyone. When you use, for example, a bear is strong and, brave and sometimes sleepy and everything. And you can think of someone in your entourage who is going to be like this, and you can say, oh, it's like a bear, and it's more about the attitude of the person more than the cultural aspect of it.
In the Chinese zodiac, there are 12 animals, right? And they each have their own character or personality.
Yeah.
I think it would be interesting, if you have a project on that, to feature the Chinese animal versus the French animals or the European animals, and see how they would interact.
Yeah, that would be interesting to take it the other way around. It's funny you mentioned that, because my girlfriend, she's coming from Vietnam, and we had the project of working on the zodiac animals, the tale of a race for the animals, how they raced to define
the finish line.
To the finish line and everything. And I love this tale because I think it's very funny, the way the rat won the race by cheating a little bit, I just love that. So maybe one day we'll have the chance of doing that.
What is the latest animation film you've watched, and what did you find interesting about it?
I mean, the latest one that I talked about was actually a Chinese movie called, I think, Deep Sea, about a little girl who is sort of taken away in a world, in a realm under the ocean. It really struck me, this movie. It was really, really weird in a good way, very different from what I'm used to see. And again, that's what I loved about watching animation movies, is that you connect with them very quickly, and at the same time I could really feel a whole culture behind it that's very different from mine, and something that I would have never thought of doing, the kind of storytelling that I would never do. And so I learned from that, so I really loved discovering this movie.
Because you travel quite widely, and then how do you think your travel experiences, or the way how you see different parts of the world, will influence your artistic style or the story you want to tell?
The experience that I have, challenging myself to new country, new culture and everything, You know, the simple fact that me being in China, I take my backpack by myself and just like try to get out of your comfort zone. That's what we need to do as artists, keep discovering new ways of living. You know, when you're talking to animators, you know, you tell little anecdotes about what you lived.
Yeah, like all these inspirations, they come from our day-to-day life. And
Yeah,
this
exactly.
is what like fuels your
creativity.
creativity.
And traveling is part of it.